They didn't look you in the eye when they spoke, not because they were shy, because they were measuring you. They wanted to see if the sting in their words would make you blink, make you shift in your chair, make you bleed without showing it. You stayed still, but inside, you were boiling, the kind of boiling that doesn't make a sound, just a slow burn under the skin. You didn't speak, not because you had nothing to say, because you understood, too late, that anything you gave them, a protest, an explanation, even a laugh, would be currency in their pocket. That was the moment you saw it. They weren't just talking to you, they were pulling strings, strings you didn't even know were there until they twitched them, and you danced, even if it was just in your mind. Power isn't taken all at once. It's shaved away, thin slice by thin slice, until you wake up one day realizing you're not deciding anymore, you're reacting. You're waiting. Waiting for their mood to decide yours. Waiting for their approval before you breathe fully. Waiting for the next time you can prove you're worth something they already decided you're not. You call it unfair. They call it control. The worst part? They've trained you to keep playing. Not because they told you to, but because they know the one thing you can't stand more than losing is being ignored. They don't need your loyalty. They need your attention. And the day you stop giving it, you stop existing in their world. That's why it's so hard to walk away. Because you don't just lose them, you lose the version of yourself you've been performing for. You know this isn't just about one person, it's a pattern. Different faces, same strings. And there's a reason you've never broken it. Not because you can't, because you've been told that control is rude, that boundaries are selfish, that being cold is cruel. But Machiavelli knew better. The coldest move isn't cruelty, it's clarity. We're not here to talk about getting even. We're here to talk about never being touched the same way again. If you've ever felt this, if you've ever caught yourself wondering when you'll finally stop being someone else's reaction, you'll want to hear the rest. And if it hits too close to home, good. That means it's yours. Leave a comment, subscribe, then stay quiet. The next move is not theirs, it's yours. They never shouted. They didn't need to. They could make you question yourself with a single pause, a single glance that lasted one beat too long. That was their art to make you do the work for them. They didn't push. They pulled, subtly, like gravity, and you followed without thinking. You thought it was conversation. It wasn't. It was calibration. They were studying you in real time, noting the words that made your shoulders drop, the ones that made your voice catch. They learned your rhythm, your breathing, the tells you didn't know you had. This isn't paranoia. You've felt it before, haven't you? That sinking awareness that you've said too much, that your own honesty is being weighed, measured, and stored away. They never react in the moment, that's how they win. They save it. They wait until the exact second you've forgotten what you told them, and then they use it, not to destroy you, but to bend you. That's the difference between the amateur and the predator. The amateur wants you broken. The predator wants you functional, but tilted. It's a quiet theft, not of money, not of status, but of self-possession. They take your reactions and turn them into a map, and the more you react, the clearer that map becomes. Every flash of anger, every defensiveness, every nervous laugh, it's all data, and you've been giving it away for free. Think back to the last time you felt cornered in a conversation. Remember how, afterward, you couldn't stop replaying it? How you started thinking about what you should have said, how you should have looked, how you could have made them see your side. That's not closure. That's the leash tightening. Because every time you run the scenario in your head, you're still playing their game. They don't want an argument. They want you to need the last word. Because if you need it, they can withhold it. And when they can withhold it, they own the pace. Here's the revelation you've been avoiding. Control doesn't start when they attack you. It starts the moment you make your peace of mind dependent on their behavior. The second your emotional state is something they can trigger, they don't need to fight you anymore. They can wait. You'll walk right into their hands just to get the feeling back. The first crack in the facade is realizing how little they actually have to do, how often they can simply disappear. how their silence, their absence can press harder against you than any insult, and how you respond to that absence, the restless checking, the unspoken questions, the way you try to get back to normal tells them everything. People imagine control as force. It isn't. Force is sloppy. Force leaves marks. Real control leaves nothing visible. It makes you think you're choosing. It convinces you the leash is a lifeline. The ones who mastered this don't tell you what to do. They make you want to do it. They let you believe it's your own decision. And by the time you realize you've been moved, you're already in position. You've felt this before. That sensation of being 3 steps behind in a game you didn't know you were playing. That heavy awareness that no matter what move you make, you're responding, not deciding. That's not bad luck. That's design. They've been building your responses like a sculptor shapes clay, press here, smooth there, take away just enough to make the form they want. The reason it's so hard to name this is because it's not obvious. It's not abuse you can point to, not manipulation you can catch in one sentence. It's the sum of small things. The tone that makes you explain yourself twice. The sigh that makes you shrink your voice. The pause that makes you fill the air. Every time you think you've handled it, you've just confirmed what they already know. They can pull you in without touching you. The first step isn't fighting back. It isn't defending yourself. It's recognizing the pattern without moving, without reacting, without giving them another piece of the map. Because once you see it, really see it, you stop dancing. And when you stop dancing, they have nothing to lead. Stillness isn't weakness. It's the removal of fuel. And for people who feed on your reactions, there's nothing colder than a flame that refuses to burn. They never strike first. They make you step forward. That way, when you fall, it's from your own momentum. That's the precision of their game. You're not a victim in your own eyes. You're a participant. You think you're acting on instinct. But those instincts, they've been engineered. It starts with something small. A question loaded just enough to make you hesitate. A tone sharp enough to make you wonder if you've offended them. A look that forces you to replay what you just said, searching for the mistake. These moments aren't random. They are tests, probes sent into your defenses to see where you leak. When you try to patch the leak, they learn more. You might call it clearing the air. They call it mapping the territory. They watch how quickly you apologize, how fast you bend to keep the peace, how often you defend yourself when you're not even accused. They learn which buttons bring out the fire and which bring out the silence. And once they have that knowledge, they don't need to confront you outright. They can make you burn without touching the match. Think about the last time you tried to prove you were misunderstood. Remember how, mid-sentence, you realized they weren't actually listening, that they'd already decided who you were in that moment and all you were doing was performing for their verdict? That's not misunderstanding. That's bait. And you took it. They create situations where your own need to be seen becomes your undoing. They make you talk just a little too much, reveal just a little too far, all while they remain still, silent, untouchable. That's not passivity. That's control disguised as indifference, and it's lethal. Silence isn't just the absence of words. It's a mirror. It forces you to fill it with yourself. The more you fill it, the more they own. Every reassurance you give, every joke to lighten the air, every explanation you pour into that void, it's all weight they can later use to tip the scale. They are patient, and patience is a weapon most people never learn to defend against. They will sit through your discomfort. They will let the pause grow until you can't stand it. And then, when you finally break and give them something, a confession, a concession, a tell, they take it with no reaction. That's how they train you. By never giving you the closure you think you've earned, you start to notice yourself adjusting before they even speak. You anticipate their moods. You avoid certain topics. You phrase things in a way you hope won't trigger the subtle shift in their face that makes your stomach drop. This is the deepest layer of their control. They don't need to correct you anymore. You correct yourself. The mechanics are simple but merciless. Test, observe, withhold, reward, but only enough to keep you chasing. They never give you the satisfaction of knowing you've won them over completely. That would close the loop. No, they keep you half-fed, half-approved, half-seen. That half becomes your hunger. And hunger makes you predictable. They're not interested in chaos. Chaos is noisy, messy, inefficient. They want order. An order where your place is beneath their gaze, waiting for it to turn your way. They want you tuned to their frequency so completely that silence becomes unbearable unless they break it. You felt that silence before, the heavy kind. The kind where you're not sure if you've done something wrong, but you start apologizing anyway. That's conditioning. That's them pulling the strings without lifting a hand. And the moment you begin to see it, the precision of it, the calculation, you realize it's not personal. That's the part that cuts deepest. You were never special in this equation. You were just another player to be studied, patterned, and kept on the line. The power they hold over you isn't about who you are. It's about what you've given them access to. And they only have that access because somewhere along the way, you forgot that you didn't owe them anything. There's a toll for staying reactive. You've been paying it so long, you don't even count the cost anymore. But it's there in the tension in your shoulders, in the hours you've lost replaying what they meant, in the way you measure your words before you even open your mouth. It's there in the fact that you've started living in response, not in choice. React long enough, and you forget what it's like to move first. You start believing that every decision must be a counter to something. Every sentence must be shaped to dodge the invisible trap. Every expression adjusted to keep the peace. This isn't adaptation, it's erosion. The more you react, the less of you remains untouched. You've probably told yourself it's not worth starting a fight. That silence is your choice. That you're picking your battles. But you know the truth, silence, for you, has been surrender. Not the kind that ends the war, but the kind that keeps it alive. You don't end their game by staying quiet. You feed it. Because every quiet concession is proof they still have the power to decide your state. And the worst part? You've started doing it when they're not even there. You hear their imagined voice in your head before you act. You preemptively adjust. You edit yourself in conversations they'll never hear. That's when you know they've taken more than just your time. They've taken the sovereignty over your own thoughts. Detachment feels foreign at first. Not reacting feels unnatural. But that's because you've been trained to see reaction as proof you're alive. They want you to believe that stillness is weakness, that coldness is emptiness, that not giving them a spark means you've lost something essential. But here's the shift. Cold is not absence. It's control. Stillness is not passivity. It's resistance without waste. Look closely at the moments you've been strongest. They weren't the times you out-argued someone. They weren't when you won the fight. They were when you simply refused to be pulled. When you let their words hang in the air without touching them. When you didn't explain, didn't defend, didn't flinch. That's the power they can't use against you. The one that gives them nothing to grab. The cost of staying reactive isn't just exhaustion, it's predictability. They know exactly what will pull you back in, because you've shown them 1,000 times, and every time you react, you reinforce the map they've drawn of you. They don't even need to guess anymore. They know which sentence to say, which silence to hold, which gesture to make. They've rehearsed you into compliance. The shift comes when you stop giving them rehearsal. When you take the stage away entirely, not to prove something, not to make a statement, but because you've decided your energy is not a public commodity. The moment you move from needing to be understood to needing nothing at all from them, the game collapses. They'll call it arrogance. They'll call it selfishness. They'll call it cold. And they'll be right. It is cold. Cold like a locked door. Cold like a wall they can't climb. Cold like the air they can't breathe in. And once you've felt the clarity of that cold, you stop missing the heat. Stillness is not silence. It's the refusal to be written into their script. It's looking them in the eye without leaning in. It's answering only when you choose. It's letting their tests dissolve without response. It's not anger. It's not forgiveness. It's nothing, and nothing is the hardest thing to fight. You've been paying for their control with every reaction. Now you stop the payments. You stop building their map. You stop being the player they can predict. And when the map stops expanding, their world starts shrinking. There's a point where you stop asking why they do it, why they test you, why they keep the leash tight, why they can't just treat you the way you treat them. That's the wrong question. The right question is why you keep making yourself available for it. Because the truth is sharp, they can't control what isn't there. Every time they pull and you're gone, the game ends. Every time they bait and you don't bite, there's no match to play. But you haven't been gone. You've been waiting at the table, hoping this round will be different, hoping the person who studied your weaknesses will choose not to use them. That's not hope, that's delusion. Control doesn't happen in a single moment. It's a contract you keep renewing, not in words, but in presence. Every time you engage, you sign it again. Every time you explain yourself, you initial the clause that says they get to define the terms. You've been signing without reading for years. And the cost isn't just your peace, it's your identity. Because the longer you play by their frame, the more you become a version of yourself built for their use. Your edges sanded down where they don't like them. Your colors muted where they find them inconvenient. You don't just lose time in these exchanges, you lose the shape of who you are when you're not under their gaze. Here's the part most people never admit. Some of you like the game. Not the losing, but the attention. The heat of their focus, even when it burns, feels like proof that you matter, that someone sees you clearly enough to target you. And so you tell yourself it's worth it, that you can handle the sting if it means you're not invisible. That's how they keep you, not just through fear, but through your hunger to be chosen, even as prey. There is no middle ground with control. You're either inside their frame or you're not in the picture. And walking out of the frame isn't a move you make halfway. You can't keep a corner of yourself in their light, hoping it will warm you without burning you. That's not how this works. The moment you let them decide how much of you they get, you've already given them all of it. This is the inevitability you've avoided. If you don't change who you are in the presence of control, it will keep shaping you. You can't just handle it better. You can't learn to deal with it. That's like standing in quicksand and telling yourself you'll just breathe slower. Control isn't managed, it's cut off. And cutting it off is not an act of defiance, it's an act of disappearance. You stop being the source they can draw from. You stop giving them the tells, the reactions, the energy. You let them find out what silence feels like when it's not an invitation, but a locked door. They will come harder at first. Push where they used to only press. They will search for the old buttons. They will throw every line they've used before, every look, every pause, and you will not respond. Not with defense, not with explanation, not with anything they can turn into fuel. This is not about becoming stone. Stone is heavy, and heaviness can be moved. This is about becoming untouchable. No edges to grab, no surface to push against, no leverage left to work with. They can't control what they can't hold. And when they finally stop trying, it won't be because they've changed. It will be because they've realized there's nothing left to win. And by then, you will have understood the truth Machiavelli knew. Power isn't about forcing others to bend to you. It's about making sure you never have to bend at all. Control isn't stolen. It's surrendered. Piece by piece, moment by moment. Until one day you mistake the cage for the room you chose. The locks aren't on their side. They're on yours. And the key has always been in your hand. You just kept putting it down to see if they'd notice. They noticed. And they liked it that way. The end of control doesn't come with an argument. It doesn't come with a final conversation where you set the record straight. It comes in silence. Not the kind they trained you to fear, but the kind that isn't for them at all. The kind that belongs to you. When you stop answering the pull, they lose the rhythm. When you stop stepping into their frame, their story collapses. And when you stop reacting entirely, you'll see the truth. They were never holding you. You were holding on. You don't announce that shift. You don't explain it. You live it. And once you do, you don't go back. If you've recognized yourself in this, you already know what's next. The move is yours, and yours alone. Leave a comment, subscribe, then disappear from the places that keep you small.